Hello, BookTube. I had, once again, appointments bitterly early this morning, and they once again landed me when they were done, just a block or two from the Brattle Bookshop, a great used bookstore in downtown Boston, where I am an habitué. And so I went to cheer myself up, and also because, despite the fact that I was just at the Brattle a few days ago, it changes all the time. It really does. You can go every day and find new things. Not just because new stock has been put out, but also because there's so much stock that you miss things. You just plain miss things. No matter how much attention you think you're paying, you just plain miss things. I know that you can go every day because for years I used to work in a retail bookstore that was around the corner from the Brattle. And I did go every day. At lunch, I went every day, rain or shine. And I came back with stuff almost every day, despite the fact that I was so regularly seeing it. Uh, so I went to the Brattle and I browsed around. It was a beautiful, crisp morning, so right on the doorstep of being actually cool. It's that time of year. It looks like the summer is finally loosening its grip. It looks like that is the case. I had the AC units pulled out of the windows here and stored away. It does not strike me as possible that even Indian summer will be warm enough to need more than just a box fan. I've kept one of those in circulation just in case it's needed, but I doubt that even that will be needed. But the AC units certainly will not be. It's always kind of surreal when you reach that point when you're watching the boys take the unit out of the window when it was so crucial for your little dog's survival for so long, and just isn't anymore. So, in other words, it was perfect browsing weather. And you might be wondering, those of you who are new to the channel, have never heard of the Brattle, you might be wondering what difference the weather would make for browsing in a bookstore. And that's because the Brattle has a sale lot outdoors, a huge sale lot of thousands and thousands of books for $1 a piece, $3 a piece, $5 a piece. And they're not arranged in any way except by price. So you can browse for the whole of your time there outside. You don't need to go inside the store at all. I did, but I did most of my shopping outside, and I got a pile of books, despite the fact that I just got a pile of books at the Brattle just a little while ago. So I thought I would show them to you. One of them is, actually a few of them illustrate an axiom of the Brattle, which is that if you're in the sale lot, you can take a gamble. You can just gamble on anything because it's all so cheap. If you're paying $1 for something, what difference does it make? If it's the slightest bit intriguing to you, you can just chuck it onto the pile. And I did that for this. This is by Diana Gaines. It's a historical novel, probably from the 1970s. Is that right? Yes, 1976. And it's called Nantucket Woman. One of these great old swashbuckling historical novels about a woman named Keziah Coffin. Other women were content to keep house, raise children, and wait for their husbands to come home from sea. Not Keziah Coffin. She built the most successful business on the island, traveled wherever she wanted, and when her husband couldn't satisfy her urgent sexuality, took one lover after another. Men on 2 continents admired her beauty and willful independence. To women everywhere, she was a constant source of scandal and envy. This, I guess, a large part of it. I think I missed this when it first came out. A large part of it probably takes place on the island of Nantucket, which I love dearly. So I'll give it a try. Bodice ripping historical fiction. Then this next one is also a mass market paperback. I recently got a hardcover of this very book, and I think from the Brattle. It was in a Brattle-Haul this year. And I think I commented at the time that I knew the book from a paperback format and never expected to see the paperback again. So I got the hardcover just so I could have it because I liked the book. But then I found the paperback, so because the Brattle will provide. This is Daphne du Maurier, who all of you will know for her novels. This is her biography of Branwell Bronte, The Infernal World of Branwell Bronte. This is the brother of the Bronte sisters. And this is one of these cheap old, is this Avon? One of these cheap old Avon mass market paperbacks. And the reason why, you might be wondering, why would I prefer this? over the hardcover that I got, and it's pure sentiment. This is the version that I fell in love with. I read my copy of this until it broke apart in the middle, and then the pages started fluttering away like monarch butterflies. And I imagine that's going to happen with this one too. But that's okay. It was $1, and it's the format that I want to reread this. Then this next one, quite the surprise, quite the pleasant surprise. Some of you, if you go to used bookstores a lot, and maybe you have a good used bookstore, some of you will recognize this Bobbs Merrill imprint. We've seen a few of them on this channel. They're very, very simple looking things, just simple paperbacks, no fuss, no muss, no cover design except for the little bird there. This is Boccaccio on Poetry by Charles Osgood, the Boccaccio scholar, Charles Osgood. He wrote an analysis of a translation and an analysis, an annotated version of a chunk of Boccaccio's life's work, which if you don't know anything about Boccaccio, or you know very little about him, you're going to think that work was the Decameron. But that isn't true. In fact, I think Osgood mentions in his introduction to this work that Boccaccio would have been outraged if he had somehow known that 5 centuries of posterity were going to remember him as the author of the Decameron and nothing else. When actually he was he was a great writer in anything that he does. His prose is just amazing. But he was also a scholar. He was a proto-humanist. And he wrote a big book that he stuck with his whole life. He tinkered with it from when he was in his 20s to when he was in the last year of his life. The Genealogia Deorum Gentilium, which is the genealogy of the gods, the genealogy of technically the Gentile gods, but it's popularly known. Popularly, I say, when it's not known at all. The Genealogy of the Gods is technically the title of the book, and this is a small chunk of that deals with Boccaccio talking about some of his sources. The Genealogia was a big kind of Bartlett's Familiar Quotations compendium of Greek and Roman mythology. Who's related to who? What are the famous stories? Which ancient authors do they come from? What are the famous lines of poetry or prose from those ancient authors about those subjects? Invaluable of the kind of thing. Those kinds of books did really, really well. They tended to do really well in an age that didn't have Bartlett's Familiar Quotations, and of course didn't have the internet. So that if you were, a rising courtier on the make, or a fawning intellectual in search of a patron or whatnot, it would really help to dress up your writing, your letters, your solicitations, if you could throw in a few classical allusions and sound knowledgeable about them. And so books like the Genealogia, or for instance, the best-selling example of them all was the Adages of Erasmus. The Adagia went through umpteen million editions, and it had publishing and copyright worked as well as it tends to work today. That book alone would have made Erasmus wildly wealthy. I mean, it did very good work for him, but in other words, these kinds of things did really well, and they continue to do really well right up until the mid 20th century and the proliferation of accessibly priced dictionary and encyclopedia sets. When suddenly, and also the proliferation of books like Bartlett's Familiar Quotations, but suddenly available to everybody. Suddenly it's in the Sears and Roebuck catalog. Suddenly it's at Marshalls and Fields. And so, it's still popular to do those sorts of things, but now the internet is here. It's supplanted the need for it completely. And that wasn't Boccaccio's main idea. He resisted the urge of getting this thing published. And what Osgood does in here is go to chunks of that work. There is no Penguin Classic of the Genealogia. There is no Oxford World's Classics. I think that Harvard's I Tatti line does the whole of it, and pricelessly with the facing languages. I think I might have written about one of those volumes. If I have, I will try to find it and leave a link down below. It's tremendously good reading. It really is. It deserves to be as well known as the Decameron. And Osgood does a fantastic job in here. So I was happy to find this for $1. Good lord! And I couldn't help but notice there's a preface that I want to give you just a taste of what Charles Osgood was like. He wrote this thing in 1930. The edition came out in 1930, and the editors came to him 30 years later. He's still alive, and asked him, do you want to revise your work? And he penned them a quick 1-paragraph note to the second edition of his work. At 85, a man has no more right to tamper with the work of his 50s than the work of another man. Indeed, this book was the work of another man, younger by a generation than I, and among all my issue of later years, my favorite. I may therefore be allowed happy satisfaction that its life is being prolonged by this new edition. I am content that it should survive without correction or change. Which is what's known today as a flex. uh, and he goes on to say in his preface, I have not attempted a close literal rendering. It has often been necessary to disregard the limits of Boccaccio's sentences and to resort to something like paraphrase in order to convey more of the meaning as well as the quality of the original. But there's a long, loving introduction to this edition, and it's in here and it's full. And I don't have this unless I still have those I Tatti volumes. I don't have this. It's a crying shame how little of Boccaccio has been translated into English. What's the matter, baby? What's the matter? Got an itch? Oh, little dog, squeak. Oh. She's got a new friend in the neighborhood, and he's a basset hound. But anyway, this is imagine finding a treasure like this for $1. I mean, this trade paperback is sun faded, and it's an old thing on its own. This is from 1956, so I'm not sure how much any of like these first three. I'm not sure how much lifespan is left in any of them, but I will happily read them again. That's for sure. These next two are trade paperbacks, and they are sturdier. They are more recent, and they may go in line with one of the reading events that I am a co-host for that I am neglecting. I'm only going to do 3 videos today. I will be talking about the 3 reading events that I am part of, but it's going to have to wait until the weekend. But one of those reading events is Dick Timber, a celebration of private eyes, of house dicks, of private investigators. And I found 2 murder mysteries that I had never heard of before, and they are about a private eye. The author styles his character as the world's first private eye because they're set in ancient Egypt. Anton Gill is the name of the author. This is called City of the Horizon, the first high, the scribe mystery, H-U-Y. So is it high like by? Is it hui? Is it Huey? I found the first one, and then I found City of the Dead, which is the third one. I saw no sign. Believe me, I looked. I saw no sign of book number 2. But I'm assuming that it doesn't matter. I'm assuming that I get all the skivvy on who Huey is in this book, and then all the others elaborate from it. So let's see here. Palace intrigues, the death of one-time royal favorites. It may sound like Tudor England, but it's Egypt during the 18th dynasty, about 1350 BC. Akhenaten, the reformist pharaoh, has died, and his successor, the child pharaoh Tutankhamun, is effectively controlled by political schemers with no love for Akhenaten's old supporters, now deemed heretics. Many of these have lost their lives, but Huey, once a scribe in Akhenaten's court, is luckier. He's lost merely his home and the right to practice his trade. In desperation, he becomes a sort of traveling troubleshooter, the world's first private eye. City of the Horizon marks his first case, bringing him up against both Egypt's powerful priesthood and a brutal gang of tomb robbers, all while he's trying to evade the clutches of the secret police. The modern world, it seems, has no monopoly on duplicity and corruption. So I found 2 of these things, $1 a piece, and that's another thing about the Brattle sale lot is that, like I said, you can just with Nantucket Woman, you can just take a wild flyer on something. If it strikes you as the least bit interesting, you can take a wild flyer on it, as long as you are careful, as we've mentioned many times on this channel. As long as you are careful to make sure that you are getting rid of books with something like the frequency that you are acquiring books, you will be fine. You will be fine. That way, you will not be up to your ham hocks in books. You have to attend to both elements of that equation. You have to get rid of books with a fair amount of this, relatively the same amount of energy as you acquire them. If you don't, you're going to run into trouble. These next three are hardcovers, and they were also facilitated by the fact they were $1 a piece, because I had a brain fart when I was looking at them. I wasn't in the best of shape. I saw this thing. This Berkeley, The People of the Black Circle, Robert E. Howard. That is not Frank Frazetta. The first time I showed this on this channel a year ago, I was told that by many, many purists. That is not Frank Frazetta. That is the name of this artist, not Frank Frazetta. These lovely editions from Berkeley that have the uninterrupted cover art like that. This is The People of the Black Circle, and I found a copy of this, I don't know, 2 years ago, a year ago, something like that, at the Brattle, and I also found a copy of this, Red Nails, likewise with the lovely cover art that is not Frank Frazetta. And I think I remember asking at the time, to just or maybe the internet, if there was one of these that I was missing. And I vaguely remembered that I was given the impression that there was in fact one that I was missing. And I remember thinking at the time, well, the Brattle will provide. The person who got rid of these two certainly got rid of the third one too. It's just that they ended up in different boxes in the basement, so they'll come up at different times. But I will see it eventually. That never happened. Enough time has passed so that I know that never happened. Instead, what happened is that somebody got rid of their own copies again. Somebody else did. And I could not remember which volume I didn't have. So when I saw 3 of them, I grabbed all 3 because I knew that at least 2 would be duplicating. But this is the one that I didn't have, The Hour of the Dragon, which was, I think, called Conan the Conqueror for a long time. If you ever saw those old L. Sprague de Camp paperbacks of Robert E. Howard, this book would almost certainly have been called Conan the Conqueror. I'm pretty sure that Berkeley was the first person, that they were the first house to revert this, not only to its original title, but also to its original text from Weird Tales. I think this is a cleaned up version of The Hour of the Dragon. And now I have all 3. This also has lovely cover art that just this uninterrupted. So now I have this whole set, and I checked. It's Hour of the Dragon that I didn't have. So now I have the finished set on my shelves in the little book room. These, of course, went to the little book room, but I have doubles of these. Now I don't need 2 copies of either of these. So if you are a Conan fan and you don't have access to a huge overturned used bookstore and you would like these things, I should probably ask Michael K. Vaughan if he actually has these editions. I'm sure that he does. but then I will be, it's the monkey's paw. I will be cursing him to look for The Hour of the Dragon. but he might want those first 2. Then this next one is also a science fiction fantasy hardcover. I had this hardcover and the old Timescape paperback many, many times. I always managed to get rid of it. Don't really know why. I like it a lot. This is Keith Laumer, who I gather is in some sort of ill repute in our censorious blue checkmark age. I haven't even checked as to why. I think his story is about Retief in the future diplomatic world, a two-fisted diplomat constantly vying with the wacky Growaki, an alien species with eye-stalk tentacles and a penchant for thuggery and stupidity and Bermuda shorts. And this is a later novel. Lama wrote a ton of Retief short stories. They were popular for a long time. And then he stopped, and then he came back. Yeah, 1983. Then he came back. I think maybe this is a science fiction book club edition. I really don't know. But this is Retief to the Rescue, which has the Rowena artwork there on the cover, and then a cleaner artwork on the back with no cover. I guess that thing with the the translucent legs is supposed to be a Groaki. It's not how I picture them. And cover artists have typically had a field day with drawing Retief, who is in the novels, in the short stories, he is much more along the lines of a big two-fisted Sam Spade, John Wayne type character. But comic science fiction book cover artists almost always want to draw him like this. Rowena, I think, has had a few chances to do it, and they've been amazing. But this is a full novel. I haven't read this in a long time, so I found a little pod of science fiction and fantasy hardcovers that may have been book club editions or whatnot. Then this next one it's a battered Penguin trade paperback, an oversized thing. We saw the other day J.B. Priestley's book, The Prince of Pleasure, about the Regency, the Prince Regent and the Regency. It was an oversized thing that's lavishly illustrated. I mentioned at the time that it was part of a whole series. It was a little fad that was done of bigger books, lavishly illustrated and written by non-historians, written by authors who have made their name elsewhere. That's Nancy Mitford or Mary Renault or J.B. Priestley or whatever. And I found that The Prince of Pleasure, and I thought, well, there are other books in this series that I liked and that I wish I could find as well. And I found one that's very much like it. I'm not saying that the whole thing is actually a series, but you know what I mean. The publishers tend to watch each other and do the same or similar things. And this is another thing right along those lines. This is Lord Rochester's Monkey by Graham Greene. This has seen better days. This is in rotten shape. I would be happy to find a hardcover of this. But this is, again, just like with the Priestley book, this is full of period illustrations, drawings, full-color paintings, all these portraits and whatnot, so that you get, it's sort of like that big illustrated Peeps. You get the whole of the visual world as well as the text. I kind of like this approach, especially if the writer is guaranteed to please me, and Graham Greene is typically guaranteed to please me unless he's incredibly indulging himself. He's going to please me. And this is a story of the favorite of King Charles II, the so-called Merry Monarch. Lord Rochester was widely regarded, highly regarded as a poet and satirist in his own day, but also a fascinating figure, well worthy of biographies, more than he's got. This is the best, most interesting biography of him that I've ever read in English. He was physically brave. He was sarcastic. He had a really good ear for a quip. He could think and be funny on his feet. He wasn't particularly reverential of royalty or of royal authority, but he was apparently really good company. Too good company in some ways, because by the time he was 25, he was riddled with venereal diseases, and they eventually killed him in his early 30s. And I've read this once, I think, maybe twice. I think it's only once. And if I remember correctly, Graham Greene draws a very discreet curtain over Rochester's last month of life. But it was horrific. Absolutely horrific. The physical details of it were absolutely horrific. You could be a hardened man of the world, your stomach would still be turned by what happened to him before he died. It was not a peaceful death at all. The one contemporaneous chronicler wrote that life passed from his body without so much as a shudder, without a sigh, just like an angel leaving his body. But oh my! But this captures a lot of the life and antics, and I got this because I'm perfectly happy when the Brattle provides me with things that it wants me to have, but also because this will work as a placeholder until a hardcover shows up. I'm sure that one will. And then this next one, the last one here for this Brattle haul. I'm not going to the Brattle this weekend, so we won't be having any Brattle hauls until next week at the earliest. This next one is pure self-indulgence. That's all. If this was $3, I think, and it was pure self-indulgence. It's a collected works of Shakespeare, which I need like an extra hole in the head. I have a bunch of collected works of Shakespeare. I don't need another one. I grabbed this one because it's illustrated by Rockwell Kent. and I know these illustrations. I've seen them many, many times. There's no. Let me get you some Rockwell Kent illustrations. There are no notes here. There's no critical apparatus to this. I think every play is individually introduced. Here we have Merchant of Venice. Let's see if we can find another one of these things here. I grabbed this thing solely because it has the Rockwell Kent illustrations in situ. You can easily call them up online. I'm sure that there are Rockwell Kent, maybe not anymore since he's not au courant now, but I'm sure that there were collections of his book illustrations that you could. There's Othello. He has this illustrative style. It's very stark. I like it a lot. He was once upon a time absolutely in demand as a book illustrator. He did Moby Dick. He famously did the Decameron. I did a bunch of other things too. I have a bunch of them. I have a bunch of Rockwell Kent books, and now I have his Shakespeare, his collected, the complete Shakespeare, with Rockwell Kent illustrations. In a bigger hardcover. It's slightly oversized so that you can see. He did full page etching, so you really need the. There's Falstaff. So you really sort of need the size. Reducing them in size would sort of kill it. So I will clean this up a little, and then I will have another Shakespeare, and it will be Rockwell Kent. So these are the kind of impulse decisions that you fall into at a place like the Brattle when you are dealing with $1 and $3 price tags. I'm standing by my claim that it's great because you can indulge yourself, but you end up lugging a bunch of stuff back to your home, opening the tote bag or the satchel or whatnot, pulling everything out and saying, "What on earth? When did I grab this?" But I'm happy to have this, don't get me wrong, and I will, believe it or not, find a space for it in the little book room. All my collected Shakespeares are in the little book room, even though they're not small books, and there's a limited amount of space in there, but it doesn't matter. I now have the Rockwell Kent Shakespeare. Then Graham Greene's book, Lord Rochester's Monkey. This is a battered old penguin, but I'll definitely take it for a reread. Then Retief to the Rescue, with the help of Rowena. Then Red Nails, in these old what is this? Berkeley Putnam editions. Red Nails, The People of the Black Circle, and the one I was missing, The Hour of the Dragon, Conan the Conqueror. So now I have 3 of these. Unless one of you is going to tell me, he's going to ruin my parade and tell me that there are 4 of them. I think I now have them all. Then Anton Gill wrote a series of books, I guess. I don't know how many there were, about the world's first private eye, set in ancient Egypt. We have City of the Dead and City of the Horizon. Then we have Boccaccio on poetry. It's going to be a lot of fun to spend time with Charles Osgood in these pages. He's largely gone. Of course, he's completely gone. He's completely forgotten. But he is a hoot of a writer to read. I mean, Boccaccio's no slouch either. But then the Infernal World of Bramwell Bronte in the old Avon paperback that I most wanted, and Nantucket Woman. She's unconventional. She's sleeping her way to a better life. So those are my books from a largely unplanned Brattle trip today. I'm glad that I did it, though. It's exhausting, but I'm glad that it is. It's such a beautiful day. It's just the kind of day you want to go out and really enjoy if you can, even if you feel like crap warmed over. You still want to go out and enjoy it. But anyway, that is my Brattle haul. There will not be any Brattle hauls this weekend, so I'm going to wrap this up for now, and I will see you soon. Thank you.